Show here on the Big Rican on Sports YouTube channel. And I am joined tonight by the man, the myth, the legend. He is the brains, and some would say the brawn behind the Shakeback Media Group. He is the Bay Area baseball brother to my New York baseball brother, Mr. Willie Epting Jr. And Willie, I want to thank you for coming on in such short notice. It's been a while, but my friend, how are you, sir? How was the holidays?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to come on with you and talk some America's pastime. The Mets, they were one of my adopted teams this past year, even though they did let us both down.
Yeah.
Everything's good, man. I'm still dealing with some lingering symptoms from COVID, with a nasty lingering cough, and I actually developed some nauseousness along with it here lately, but. Other than that, man, everything's okay. Holidays were good. Christmas was good. Hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas also.
Oh, we did. And Bobby decided he would rather play with his old toys this year than actually open his new ones.
Well, you know what you do then, right?
Take them back?
No, you keep them and then just use them next year.
That's no, we ended up getting them all open. We ordered him one of those little people racetrack things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're thinking, oh, it's cute. It's small. It's taller than he is.
Wow.
I was not happy, man.
I bet.
So, and by the way, the COVID thing, I still smell cigarette smoke all the time since I've had it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird. But I'm glad to hear you're on the mend because the hot stove should have kept you a lot warmer than your fever did the last few weeks. It has been crazy from the jump.
Yes, it has.
I mean, so far we have had a second $40 million average annual value contract given out to a pitcher. We've had a relief pitcher hit over $100 million. And now I'm just talking about the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about current events. And we'll get to Carlos in a minute. But I want to talk about your current living situation, your home state, the great state of Texas, which broke my heart a little bit, of course, with the acquisition of Jacob deGrom by the Rangers, the under-the-radar acquisition of Andrew Heaney, which I think is huge for them. And then, of course, today, the signing of Nathan Eovaldi to round out that pitching staff. Look, Texas is putting together something, Willie. What's the vibe down there?
Well, when you secure not just one of the best rotation heads in all of baseball, but really one of the best players in the sport, coupled with what you did last year with the $500 million that you signed, the vibe around here is pretty good. I mean, it's unfortunate that that Chris Woodard's not going to be here to be the benefactor of what he had already previously built. But if I am a Rangers fan, of which I am not, if I am a Rangers fan, I would be very, very excited. I think that they have put themselves in a position to where they could be, at minimum, the second best team in the division.
See, I had forgotten that Haniger, when we talked a little bit before we jumped on, I had forgotten that Haniger is now in San Francisco. And I had made the comment that I thought they were the third best team in that division behind Seattle and behind, of course, the Houston Astros, who, yes, they lost Justin Verlander, but added a big piece this offseason themselves. Look, their rotation as it stands right now, and I just saved this earlier, is Jacob deGrom in the one, which he is the one. And I'm going to miss him. Mm-hmm. But he is down there now. The signing of Nathan Eovaldi today from Boston, proven postseason guy, big in that 2018 World Championship for the Red Sox. Martin Perez, John Gray, Jake Odorizzi, the Braves cast off, and of course Andrew Heaney from the Dodgers. Listen, that's a six that's going to match up against anybody. The question becomes, what's behind them?
Well, when you have, first of all, let's say this about deGrom. Let's hope for the Rangers' sake that he is going to be at full health. And at least not even full health, but I mean, you take a Jacob deGrom at 3/4 health, and down here, I think, man, when this new ballpark was built, it really put the Rangers in position to go after type of players like this, because now, as opposed to being in the heat that is the blast furnace, um, you now have a dome basically. I mean, this is a retractable roof, but I mean, in June, July, August, and September, they're going to close that thing more often than not. So what I believe for the Rangers with these guys, man, it's a rotation that is going to be considered to be what they call top heavy with DeGrom and of course with Perez. But I mean, Taylor Hearn's still there. You just spoke of Odorizzi. I mean, if they can get anything of what he used to be, they will be all right there. The Rangers' Achilles heel for the most part of their history has been pitching, particularly the bullpen. They have a closer there now. I can't remember the young man's name, but he's pretty good as well. I like what they've done. I mean, they're like I said, they're gonna be the second best team in the division, and they may. I'm gonna go ahead and say this now. They may even challenge the Astros for the number one spot because of what the Astros lost.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned the big piece they added, which was Jose Abreu to play first base. I would think effectively ending Yuli Gurriel's time in Houston. Because you're not going to DH him. We got Yordan Alvarez there. He doesn't really play anywhere else. I still think Houston's the team to beat. Now, yes, their pitching took a hit with Justin Verlander going to the Mets. That's that 2-year, $86.6 million contract he signed with them, with a vesting option in year 3 for $35 million. Here's a funny one. Apparently, there's a line in Vegas that right now people are on the money line betting that Justin Verlander will make more starts in the next 2 years than Jacob deGrom.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to actually ask you about that.
My feeling on his age or my feeling on his durability?
Well, in really like a comparison. I mean, who do you think as of right now will win that trade in the long run? Would it? Because I mean, when you look at Verlander, him being 38 years old,
39, he'll be 40 by the time the season starts.
And DeGrom is 30, 4?
He'll be 35.
35. Who do you like? I mean, in terms of durability and everything that you said, skill, all that mixed in together.
Well, let's put it this way. With the injury history since 2020, the Mets were not giving him 5 years. And I don't think he wanted to be here. I don't know if you caught it, but I had said to Alex on the last Big Rican show, the baseball show we did, I really think he signed that extension in 2019 because Brodie Van Wagenen was his agent at one point in time. And David Wright is the one who got involved to get it done. You know, loyalty for Brodie, that's great. But then if you would have turned your back on the Mets and David Wright had gotten involved in it, the fan base would have abandoned him. Cy Youngs or not. That'd have been it. For this season, I think the Mets are going to win this move. And here's why. Justin's got a guy who's going to keep him honest in Max Scherzer at the top of that rotation with him. These guys are now a part of a 5 or 6 if you let Peterson and McGill in the mix. With Scherzer and Verlander, you have Quintana, who I think is going to be a massive move for them. Kodai Senga, who I think is also going to be a huge move for them, and honestly is the bridge to Ohtani next offseason. And Cookie opted in. Cookie's your 5. That's how deep this 5 could be in New York. If Jake is healthy, Texas will win this thing moving forward, without a doubt. It's not even a question. He's the best. There are times, and they're in New York the end of August, and there are times if they're on TV and I get to see it and the Mets aren't playing, I will watch him pitch. I just love watching him pitch. So I think for the short term, the Mets will win this contract, but if he's healthy, the Texas Rangers will be the winner of this whole thing. I don't think they'll win a World Series. Not with some of the other moves some of the other teams have made and some of the ones that are coming in future years, but they'll definitely be a contender. And adding Evaldi today, I think, really cemented the fact that they are going to trying to make a run at the American League West.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that let's go back for a second. I'm really happy that Carlos Carrasco re-upped with the Mets.
Me too.
He had a terrific year this past season.
He did. He really did. I mean, a lot of it got lost because of who was at the top of the rotation, even though we only saw them from August 2nd on, and really not maybe three times through the rotation we saw them pitch back to back because of injury to both DeGrom and to Scherzer. Cookie was a stabilizing factor. He won 14, 15 games.
Yeah. I thought it was a terrific performance all year by him. I'm pretty sure that the Mets were pleasantly surprised in what they got out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gonna be really, really needed next year with the absence and the departure of one Mr. Bassett up to Toronto.
Especially with Senga being a question mark of what he'll be his first year in the U.S. from Japan. That's why I think Quintana is maybe their biggest move of this offseason. Number one, they were very right-handed last year.
Yep.
They had no left-handed starters. They only had one lefty in the bullpen. They have addressed that with Brooks Raley in the bullpen. They've addressed that with Quintana in the middle of the rotation. If it's me at the beginning of the year, I'm pitching Senga out of the 4. And I'm going to put Quintana behind the 2 horses and the 1 and the 2 to split it up.
How about the reunion of Verlander and Scherzer all over again?
You know, it's funny when he made the decision to come to New York, people put up pictures of him and Scherzer at the 2013 All-Star game at Citi Field.
That was only 10
9 years ago? Yeah. And if you remember, Scherzer started that game against Matt Harvey.
Wow.
Who'd have thought, Willie, in 2013, 9 years later, we'd be talking about Scherzer still pitching in New York and Matt Harvey being basically out of baseball. That
rotation that y'all had. It just
the 4 horsemen?
Yes.
Oh. I have been a Met fan my entire life, and the Mets have been known for pitching from the late Tom Seaver to Kuzman to Matlack to Gooden to Seaver, or to Gooden to Darling, Leiter, and then you had Generation K, which didn't come together with Pulsifer, Isringhausen, and Paul Wilson. And then you had the 4 horsemen, as Jim Brewer called them, the 4 guys who took them to a pennant in 2015. And then Zach Wheeler was pitching out of the 5. And they had Bartolo.
Yeah, he did. And then it's like they just disappeared.
Well, you figure that was 15. 16, Wheeler didn't come back from Tommy John until 17 and was Midland. You lose Syndergaard in 16 to the lat. Matz was often hurt. Harvey had thoracic outlet syndrome. DeGrom missed time in 16 with having the ulnar nerve moved. Yeah, I think we got 1 year of them all pitching in rotation. That was 2019, and we almost went to the playoffs. Imagine what it would have been with all of them healthy when they had guys around them. Or not Mickey Callaway as the manager.
Mickey Callaway. Okay, I'm going to leave that there.
He's baseball's version of the Browns quarterback. Moving on. Sorry.
I take it you don't want to say his name.
He has many names.
I bet he does.
Jim and I have done everything from naming him after a certain comedian's advertising to playing the theme song to Fat Albert to saying that the allegations need to come in on picture pages. Well, you know how Jim and I go. It's
Here's my thing on that, though. I mean, look, the dude either did or didn't do what he did. The allegations have been somewhat proven that something happened. He's paid the price for it. Let the man move on. I mean, let the man move on and live his life. And
and I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I said this to him a couple weeks ago. If he showed some kind of remorse, I'd be more on that line. But I've told you before, my issues with that move were the salary cap decimation, the draft capital decimation, and the sheer fact that he's now 12-14 outside of a dome.
Well,
is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move out to California and let's talk about what the Dodgers have lost.
Okay. I
Because
love talking about when the Dodgers lose.
so Andrew Haney is now in Texas to pitch with DeGrom and Evaldi and those boys. Tyler Anderson went across town
Yeah, he did.
to Anaheim. Is this Artie Moreno's last chance to keep Ohtani in LA if it is to win this year? Not that they're going to do it.
I think he's out no matter what. I think he's out no matter what, and I think he's coming. He's either going to wind up in New York, or I'm sorry, he's going to either wind up with the Mets or the Yankees, one of the two.
And Billy Epler was the GM who brought him from Japan, so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask this question of you then, sir. Are Mike Trout's days in LA numbered?
They should be.
I agree with you.
I don't know if he wants to leave there, though.
I think he likes the anonymity.
Well, that's bad for baseball. Good for him, I guess. But
agreed.
To answer the question, I don't believe his days are numbered because I don't think he wants them to. I'm pretty sure he has a no trade clause in that big deal that he signed, 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years
Something
ago?
Like that.
I don't think he has a desire unless he ends up in Philly, back home.
That wouldn't be fair. Well, look, and I'm not even saying that because look how good that team would be.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be hard pressed to find. I mean, as much money as Steve Cohen has spent this offseason, and if the deal for Correa happens, which according to what I'm seeing, it's going to happen, they're going to make the language work in the contract. You're talking about in one weekend, you could see a lineup on each side. On the Philly side, go Turner, Bohm, Hoskins, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, JT Realmuto. And on the other side, Correa, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, Marte, Nimmo, and Francisco Alvarez if he's ready. I mean, that's just, you're talking some serious bats. I think the Mets have a little bit better pitching, especially with Eflin going. Tampa Bay spent $26 million on Zach Eflin.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
They overpaid for him.
I'm more shocked that they spent money.
I think the Tampa Bay Rays, they may see themselves on a decline in that division. I think the Yankees are still going to be the Yankees. We saw what the Orioles did last year with basically nothing. After trading their best player away to the Astros at the deadline. Toronto is still Toronto, and they actually bolstered themselves even further. I think the Rays see the handwriting on the wall, and then they lost Kiermaier to the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I love the Dalton Varsho trade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that trade for them. Because now Varsho doesn't have to be, a modern day version of a rover and play different positions. They're going to stick him in the outfield because you have Alejandro Kirk behind the plate.
And what I heard was they're going to put him in left, and they're going to put Springer in right, or they may put him in center.
You have to move George to the corners. You have to move George to the corners.
Yeah.
He's been hurt too much. And
even with that, I mean, they instantly improved the defense in the outfield for them, just like that.
Agreed. Kiermaier can still go get it.
Mm-hmm.
And Varsho, he played, I think it was a 3-game series at Citi Field earlier this past season, and he caught the second game. Played the outfield the other. I love that move for Toronto. Who was the other one? They grabbed the pitcher. Oh,
well, they got Bassett from you guys.
That's right. They got Bassett. He's nice to sit in that rotation too.
Ryu is the top of the rotation. He was hurt a lot last year.
Yeah, so if he's healthy, that's a different animal. You have Bassett now. Who was Alec Manoa?
Alec Manoa, yep. Mhm.
Who's my new favorite, by the way.
Still
Do you
have
see he was asked what player he?
I was just gonna say that they still have Jose Barrios.
Yep.
Remember they got him in the
Who
trade
very
over
quietly has
from the
from
Twins at the
Minnesota.
deadline. Yeah.
Who very quietly has done a lot for them, but not really brought the fanfare you would think a big acquisition like that would do.
Well, at this point, he's probably they still have Kevin Gossman as well, remember?
Oh,
So
yeah.
you look at their rotation, the top four. I mean, in no particular order, right? You got Ryu, you've got Bassett, you got Barrios, you got Gossman, and you have Manoa. So that's five. They're
I
five.
say, and Manoa may be the best out of all five.
You think he's better than Ryu?
I think he's going to give Rio a run for his money this year.
And he's a big dude too, man. 6'6", 285.
Did you hear what he said the other day? He was asked on a podcast who the biggest cheater he played against was, and he said Garrett Cole.
Yeah. That shows.
Speaking of Captain Spider Tack, I see the Yankees finally got him some help.
Yeah, they got I forgot who it was. Good grief.
Rodon.
Yeah, Carlos Rodon from the Giants. Well, I got a concern about that. Because going from pitching at whatever the name of that ballpark is in San Francisco now, I know it's Pac Bell Park and AT&T Park. I don't remember what the name of it is now. But going from there, which is an obvious pitcher's park, to the modern day bomb squad or bomb launching that is Yankee Stadium. How do we, and then going from the National League to the American League, where, well, it's not going to be as much of a difference these days because now the National League has the DH. But in terms of going from one park that is pitcher friendly to another park that is hitter friendly, how effective do we think he's going to be?
He does well against lefties, so I think that's why he was their top target pitching wise. His splits are crazy. Here's the problem with that. He loves to throw that fastball on the outside part of the plate to the righties. If you have a right-handed hitter who has half a brain in his skull and realizes that all he's got to do is hit a humpback line drive and it's going to go out of the ballpark, it could hurt him. Mm-hmm. Remember, Garrett Cole's home runs per 9 innings went through the roof when he moved to Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's still striking out 250 dudes a year. He's winning a lot of games for a team that's constantly in a postseason race. But, you know, Rodon's never really been in that kind of a pressure cooker. He came up with the White Sox, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then with the Giants, as big of a market as San Francisco is, it's not a big market team. He had injury issues a couple years ago. What?
It ain't New York, that's for sure.
No, and it's not the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in Queens, you get a pass for a little bit to adjust. Look at Lindor. They loved him that whole first year, even though he was garbage.
Yeah, he was.
And last year, he's 30 and 100 plus. And you see the Puerto Rican flags just all over the joint, which I happen to like.
So what are we thinking in terms of the rotation for the Yankees? They have, of course, Garrett Cole,
Rodon,
Nestor Cortez, Rodon. They still have Frankie Montes, who they got from the A's.
Mm-hmm.
They also, of course, still have Domingo Germán.
Who is
him?
You know, I think Germán's going to be a big piece for them because he's coming off the injury. He didn't pitch a lot last year, but when he did, he was effective. Can he handle a whole season? My issue with the Yankees right now, besides obviously the top of their rotation, because I am not a fan of his, and you guys I've made it very clear that I'm not a fan of his. What's the bridge going to be to get to, oh, wait, who's your closer?
Good question, because our road is no longer the Cuban Missile. He's like the Cuban firecracker.
He's like a Cuban sandwich is more like it now.
That's a and their bullpen last year gave them fits, not in a good way.
No, and going into the season, I know opening day when you, Natalie, and I talked, we thought the Yankee bullpen was going to be the strength of their rotation, and it ended up being somewhat of an Achilles heel, especially after the hot start was over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look what the Astros did to them and coming out of the break. But and then they got my homie, my big homie, Jose Trevino down there. I've been trying to get that dude back on the hashtag Brothers Baseball Show, but I guess he's got a lot of things going on in the offseason. He usually does, and we just haven't been able to connect. But
And listen, I know I sent it to you when it happened, but the platinum glove for him was very well deserved.
mm-hmm.
He is outstanding behind the dish. I honestly didn't know much about him until I was introduced to him through you,
Mm-hmm.
and being on the show and the stuff you did for him with his charity and such. And then I started looking at the numbers. I was like, oh, I like him in Queens.
He's a leader too, man.
He is. Did you
And
see he went to his kid's
very
school in full uniform?
Did he what?
He went to his kid's school for career day in full uniform, had the catcher's gear on and everything. He even shaved.
In New York or here in Texas?
I don't know where the kid's going to school. I honestly don't. But he went for career day in full Yankee uniform. He even told the guy in the show he was on, he wore his cup and everything.
That might have been TMI.
Wow. They asked him. Whatever. But I mean, listen, he seems like he's a great dude. He is a great, great backstop. He's one of the few I see not peeking over the shoulder to the bench.
Mm-hmm.
He's calling his own game, which to me, being old school like you, that is the mark of a great catcher.
Yeah. He was in the running for the Roberto Clemente Award too,
which I voted for Pete because it's Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I vote for my guy each year, whoever the Mets nominee is. But if there was another one, it would have been him. And as a matter of fact, I voted for him the year before because I think he was nominated from the Rangers too, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I know I voted for him the year before. But when the Polar Bear was up for it from the Mets, I mean, that's my guy, man.
Of course.
That's my guy. I got to vote for him.
Of course.
Can I say that I'm glad Aaron Judge stayed in New York and not sound like a jerk?
Yeah, from an objective point of view, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, there are certain players you want to see never leave a certain team, and he was one of them. Would he have been good in San Francisco? Yeah. Would he have been, I mean, when he said he gave up money for his legacy, you don't get legacy by going team to team. It's just not something that happens. I think that was a great move by the Yankees. I think it needed to be done. Especially coming off of a near unanimous. Is it near unanimous or was he the unanimous MVP?
I don't think it was unanimous. It was near though.
Yeah. 62 homers, setting the American League record. Only that's ever really been held by a Yankee. Be it Ruth or Maris or now Aaron Judge. I think that deal had to be made. But it's another one. It's a long-term. Let's see what happens. I think his injury woes are behind him, but especially since he's going to play a corner this year with Harrison Bader, who, by the way, is going to be awesome in New York. He's going to be awesome in New York. I've always liked him even in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be huge for Judge's health. And then when Stanton's contract is up, he's just going to slide right into the DH role.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think them re-signing Rizzo to a 2-year deal,
huge,
actually continues to add some veteran stability in that lineup. DJ LeMahieu, I know he was injured a lot last year as well. This team is still stacked offensively, but they're getting older. They're getting older quick.
Question: who's going to play shortstop?
I don't know. It's going to be Peraza, maybe kind of Falefa.
Volpe is still there.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a serious question because I don't know if I said it to you or if I said it to Alex a few years ago. Gleyber Torres cannot play shortstop and be an offensive contributor. I said it a few years ago. And oh, look. It's like I knew what I was talking about.
Mm-hmm. That happens sometimes.
It does. And did I know what I'm talking about? Stop it, man. Hey, speaking of your little quips that catch me offline.
Okay.
When Jim and I did our year-end show last week, or the 17th we did it, he had cut 6 different clips of our favorite moments of the year. And the close your mouth, Mike, was obviously one of them. But hold on. When we were talking about the Donovan Mitchell trade, I didn't realize you said Kevin till long after the fact.
Did I say Kevin Mitchell?
Yes.
I tend to do that a lot.
And it's like you had that big grin on your face and you're like, Kevin, and I didn't catch it. And I went back, I was watching it after the fact. I went, wait a minute, he said Kevin Mitchell. What is it?
Yeah, I've done that quite a bit. I would be listening to the show, like on the network or whatever, over the weekend. And I'm like, I can't believe I said that. That is not him. So,
that was number of our 6 clips that we did. We did them in ascending order of popularity. That was number 2.
Oh, okay. Well,
our take.
I'm glad I could bring some inconsistent and yet inaccurate humor to the show.
Listen, man, it's no the keep your mouth close your mouth mic was number 2. But I got to tell you, number 1 was our take on the Charlotte Hornets jerseys, which was funny. Have you seen them? The City Edition. Go on the Wise Guys YouTube channel and watch it. Because I mean, obviously it's off color because that's kind of how him and I roll on that page, but it's interesting. That's all I'm gonna say.
I would check it out,
and it's funny.
I would definitely check it out.
So let me ask you this question: Is you're a purist like I am about the game, and I know when we do our season preview, when we do the Big Rican 6, which I'll talk timing with you once we get offline for that. Is Steve Cohen ruining baseball in your eyes?
Yeah,
I'm not going to be mad.
Yeah, no. I mean, baseball to me is the dinosaur of all of the 5 major sports in North America. And I include soccer in there too, because soccer is a major sport. And we've seen baseball do things that I never thought baseball would do. Instant replay, the robot strike zone or whatnot. So I guess for me, man, to be honest, I think anything that anybody is involved in that will enhance the integrity of the game and not necessarily take away from it, in spite of what some people like you and I in our beliefs may be about the game of baseball and where it came from. It's never going to be that again. It's never going to be that again. You think about it from this standpoint. The playoffs are going to continually to be expanded. I think once they get to because this year I thought was great. I love the fact that all 3 games were played at the higher seeds park for the wild card or for the wild card round. I never was really a fan of the one playing game. That's like game 163 to me. And anything can happen in one game. Mm-hmm. So to answer the question, I'm like, yeah or no. And the reason why I say that is because of all of those things that I just said in terms of, baseball moving around and doing different things that we never thought it would do before. But it's allowing the sport to go places that it needs to get to in order to get back to where it once was, which is a fan favorite across the United States and then some.
Yeah, and I am in agreement. Now, listen, I am a purist when it comes to certain things. My favorite moment of the 2015 World Series, unfortunately, Cespedes in Game 5 fouls the ball off his leg and has to leave the game.
That was done. He was done after that. Never again the same.
No. Going around the horn, the Mets had Travis d'Arnaud behind the plate, Matt Harvey on the hill, Lucas Duda at first, Daniel Murphy at second, Wilmer Flores at short, David Wright at third, Michael Conforto in left, Juan Lagares in center, Curtis Granderson in right. 8 out of those 9 players made their major league debut in a Met uniform and came through the Mets system, whether they were acquired by trade like d'Arnaud in the R.A. Dickey trade, or drafted like David Wright and Conforto and those boys. That was my favorite moment, because that's like, okay, you built that winner. Mm-hmm. Good on you. Unfortunately, with the way the team was mismanaged for the last 6-7 years, we'll say 5 years.
Do you mean on the field or in general?
In general.
Okay.
In order to build a farm system to be sustainable as a winner, he's got to do this, to put a winner on the field and to bring this championship that now we are in year 37 without a title. Since it happened. Stop it.
1986.
I was 7 years old, Willie. I'm going to be 44 in less than a month.
I think I had just turned 15.
I have seen national championships from Ohio State. I have seen the title that ended the curse with the Cavaliers. And I have seen 2 other World Series and a couple of near misses in 88 and 06 of getting there.
And you saw a Browns playoff win.
Yes, I did. Which is like the albatross in the room. It is nice to have a fan running the show. Mm-hmm. Who all he wants to do is bring a smile to the people's face who inevitably pay the bills. Mm-hmm. It is refreshing. And, last year, we got Old Timers Day back last year for the first time since, I want to say, the early 80s. I'm sure he's going to throw Banner Day at us someday. Is he ruining the game as a Met fan? No, he's not. And that's very selfish of me to say. But he's committed $800 million in contracts if and when the Correa deal goes through. But all the deals are not just throwing money at guys. Every single deal the Mets have made have been from a point of need, or one in Correa that actually answers 2 questions. Because now they have their DH. Eduardo Escobar, who is a switch hitter and figured it out at the end of last year, would DH. Vogelback is now your number 1 bat off the bench, and Correa is going to play third. That's one move that answered 3 questions. They also had the worst production out of anybody that made the playoffs from third base. When you have an Alec Bowman and Austin Riley in your division, you got to have somebody who can swing with them. And now they do. I honestly believe this is going to get done. I don't think he's going to let this guy walk away.
And Mike, to your point about that, he's doing it, or he's been doing it in a way that Mets fans should be proud of, because not only are you recognizing and fulfilling the need, you're not just going out here like another team in New York we've seen them do, go out and just buy people for or rent people for half of a season. He's literally putting the pieces in place for a long and sustainable product on the field.
Exactly. And the other thing too is, by doing that, now, yes, you have some crown jewels of the farm system that you're going to have to make decisions on. Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, Francisco Alvarez. What are you going to do with them? Well, Mark Canha's contract is up after this year, and Beatty was playing left field a bunch in the minor leagues. There's Beatty's answer right there. You make him your left fielder. Mm-hmm. Alvarez, I know they signed Narvaez. I love Tomas Nido. Francisco Alvarez needs to be the opening day catcher with this rotation. And you can bat him 9th. When Correa's deal is done, the left side of your infield is locked up into the next decade. Mm-hmm. I think next year he's going to roll up the Brinks truck to McNeil and Alonso, and he's going to lock up the two homegrown fan favorites for the next 10 years apiece, which you need to do.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
This is a question that just popped in my head when you said that. Do you think that re-signing Pete Alonso would mean more to the Mets than what Judge or what the Yankees did with Judge when that time comes for Alonso? What, next year?
19, 20, 21, 22, 23, after 24.
After 24. So at that point in time,
he's a free.
At that point in time, do you think it
Yes.
will mean? Okay. Yeah.
And let me explain why. And it's two words. It's David Wright. The Mets have not been a franchise, no matter who has owned it, that has kept their stars that they have brought along and developed for the entirety of their careers. This is the franchise that traded Tom Seaver.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even born yet. And it annoys me to this day.
He was pretty good.
He was all right. They tried to do it with Jacob deGrom, and he just didn't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
When David re-signed long-term, as a baseball fan, it made me smile. Not just a Met fan, because no one was more synonymous with the Mets than David Wright. I mean, you think about the Mets, and he's one of the first names that pop into your head. Now it's Pete. And McNeil's story, an afterthought to a late September call-up to getting a job to where you let a first, before the PED, surefire first ballot Hall of Famer walk out.
Mm-hmm.
And he wins a batting title. It's happened twice in Mets history. One by a guy who they should have kept for his whole career, and one by one I think they're going to. Reyes being the other one. I think it'd mean more to Met fans than what Yankee fans can understand with Judge. Because at the end of the day, Aaron Judge wasn't leaving New York. He did everything. All he did was bet on himself to make more money. He did everything he did, said, I'm staying with the Yankees, but I'm not signing that deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he did.
That's all he did.
I think Pete would leave if he really got wooed by somebody. But I think Mr. Cohen knows that the Met fan base, when we attach to somebody, we attach to somebody. And Pete is our guy. And the Flying Squirrel is our guy. They're next. They've got to be. I fully believe next offseason is going to be Ohtani, O'Neill, or McNeil, and Alonso. Is going to be the three moves they make for long-term contracts.
Wow, what's that going to put their salary or their?
Well, let's see. This year, with the luxury tax number, it is $492 million.
$500 million.
Yeah.
How much is that dude worth?
Steve Cohen?
Yeah.
He wrote a check for the franchise. That's how much he's worth.
Well, okay, but he may have already secured funding from other sources to write that check.
No, I'm pretty sure that was his checking account. This dude, seriously, no, in all seriousness, he owns 97.2% of the team.
It's safe to say that that's a majority owner.
Steve Cohen's net worth. His net worth currently is $17.4 billion. Not
bad.
This is a toy to him.
How much did he buy the team for?
He was already a minority owner.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say he wrote a check for $5 million.
5 billion?
Billion. Because he owns the ballpark. See, that's the thing. People, and I always gave the Wilpons an excuse or slide on this. The New York Mets wrote a check for Citi Field. New York City owns none of that ballpark, unlike in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
There was very little to no public funding for Citi Field. The Mets City Group was in on that. Obviously, Citi Field. That's when I was working for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Madoff, of course, screwed him. So they got a little bit of a pass with me. But Citi Field was selling out, especially after 2015. Spend some money. Build the farm system. Do something. And there's always rumblings that he's going to buy SNY.
What's that?
SNY is the Mets network.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's they say it's a regional sports network, covers all New York sports. It's the Mets network. Like,
So
yes is the Yankees.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like with James Dolan and the MSG deal out there as well, right?
Kind of. Steve Cohen's not a douche.
Oh, yeah. We know. No. How can you not let Spike Lee into the arena? Really?
How can you have Charles Oakley escorted out by security?
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, Oak's from Cleveland. He's from East Cleveland. You don't do that. He will find you and fight you.
And Stephen A. Smith said he would not go back into the building because of
good.
Although they playing some very good basketball right now.
They are playing some very good basketball right now.
But this is a baseball show. I have let you digress.
It's okay. So let's get into my boys a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, they were the first domino to fall this year, giving Edwin Diaz $102 million. Which, by the way, Jim made fun of me for because there's a lot of deferred money in that, and it's another Bobby Bonilla day. Don't get me started on Bobby Bonilla day. Bobby Bonilla day is a holiday in my house because of what it ended up doing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first chip to fall. Then, of course, DeGrom goes to Texas. They answer with probably the only answer you can make, and that's Justin Verlander. Did you see the video of his wife giving the Philly fans a finger?
I did. I did.
She's amazing. She's like the anti-Giselle.
Yeah, she's she. Well, I don't know because it's like Giselle has said at one point, Tom can't block for himself. He can't throw the ball to himself.
No, I'm talking about she's gonna let him pitch until he's ready to be done.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And she stands by her man too, for real.
Yes, she does. And she's gonna be a lot of fun. The other thing I like that what Steve Cohen does is his wife is very involved in discussing things with the free agents and their families. It's a family-run organization with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jim and I compared it to a small market mindset with a big market budget. Because when you get the family involved and everything else, you're like, okay, this is what we can offer you. This is what we can do for you on the field. Let's talk about how we take care of your family. Let's talk about what they can get into around here. Let's talk about schools and everything else. I love it. I absolutely love it. This is the first time in a long time I am so happy with the direction of the franchise that owns my heart that I itch for spring training.
Mm-hmm.
So they move from Verlander, and then, of course, they bring over Kodai Senga from Japan. I think they got him on the cheap, Will. I really do. 5 years, 75 with no posting fee because he was an actual free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard anything about him? Outside of some highlights and stuff I've seen, I haven't heard much about him.
Mm-mm.
Well, apparently it's a mid to high 90s, fastball, disappearing split like most of the Japanese pitchers have. And he seems a little more durable. He's already training with Yu Darvish to get on the 5 to once every 5th day schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited by this. This was the other guy I wanted them to get in free agency. Bringing back Brandon Nimmo had to happen. I think he got more
Stabilizing force.
and a 400 on base out of the leadoff spot. And a guy whose defense has trended up every year since he became the everyday center fielder. Again, I brought up Jose Quintana. I love the Jose Quintana move. I absolutely adore it. And I've always liked him. He reminds me of Santana Light.
Mm-hmm.
Good changeup. Doesn't throw as hard as Johan did in his prime. But for some reason found out in St. Louis last year he could throw the ball up in the zone and get guys out. Because he's always been a nibbler. He was the White Sox, then the Pirates, then St. Louis. Or was he? No, he was.
I know he came up with the White Sox.
Okay, I was going to say was it the White Sox or the Twins? And then the big one last week when we woke up last Wednesday morning.
Like what?
When I heard they were in on him at the winter meetings, I was like, come on, man. Come on. He's not going to spend that much money. Is he? And everybody's like, no, the Giants are going to get this figured out. Man, when I woke up Wednesday morning, I went, what in God's name is going on here?
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise. We talked about it, I think. Yeah, we did talk about it. We talked about it on your show.
Well, we talked about it in text message. We never got on here because we were going to do Wednesday night.
Was that?
And I had promised my buddy John that I was going to do. Who I'm going to. By the way, if you're in for Friday, so is he. The guy who was the referee for the D2 playoffs and the game in
Munich.
Yeah.
We actually flew into Munich. That might have been one of the places where I got no, that Munich was on the way there, so I didn't get it there. But anyway, yeah. What time on Friday? What we talking about that? Same time? Okay. I think I'll be good.
Yeah, it's always 9:00 because I got to put Bobby to sleep first.
Okay.
That's how it works. So because I promised him we did a breakdown of what the 12-team playoff would look like this year and what we thought about it moving forward. And then we've been trying to get onto this thing, but it's been almost a week, and here we are. I mean, I understand why the Giants and Mets have stopped. This is a big amount of money for a guy who, now correct me if I'm wrong, this was a broken leg issue in 2014 when he was in the minor leagues that he had surgically repaired, and it seems like they are not happy with the repair that was done, or the stability of it is what it sounds like. I mean, you heard anything about this going into this year?
No, and why now? Because the dude has won multiple MVPs. I mean, he's been to multiple World Series. He arguably was the best player on some of those teams, which was years after this, whatever took place.
Yeah.
So why now?
I think it's the amount of the contract. I think he shocked everybody last year with going to Minnesota because you and I, when you, Alex, and I talked about that, we were kind of like, I'm sorry, where did he go?
Yeah. He lied. He lied to us.
He did. So I think it's the amount of money. I think some of it's Scott Boras trying to push things through and people saying, whoa. Let's look at this. Let's see what it is. I honestly don't think he wants to be here. He wants to play with his boy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's willing to move he said it in public. He is only willing to move for one player, and that's Francisco Lindor. Because when those boys get together for the WBC, that infield for Puerto Rico is nasty.
Yeah, they clown a little bit.
He's at Correa at third, Lindor at short, Baez at second.
Mm-hmm.
Who plays for TJ Rivera? The old Met played first base for that team before. And is Yadier Molina their manager?
I haven't heard that, but if he is, I'm instantly pulling for that team.
I got skin in the game with that one, man.
I know, man, but
Polar Bear's playing for the U.S. Yo, the U.S. team has Goldschmidt, Alonso, Trout. How'd you like that middle of the lineup?
but still, I mean, those Puerto Rican cats. Oh
And
my God.
Julio, oh, by the way, Julio Rodriguez is playing center field for the Dominican.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Edwin Diaz is closing for Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Side note on Edwin Diaz. Do you know what
You
Bobby's
got,
favorite video on YouTube is?
what's that?
Timmy
The-
Trumpet.
yeah. So you got skins in the game on both sides, man.
Well, that's because it's funny because when the first one, no, the second one, the one in 09, I went to a ski resort up here with a buddy of mine. I had the Puerto Rico t-shirt on and the U.S. hat on.
Mm.
And people were looking at me like this.
Which one is it?
It's both.
Yeah.
When they played each other in the final, I was like, I win everything here. Oh, here's the one I want to ask you about. As the Cats decide to fight while I'm online here, go away. Jamison Tyone is going to be big in Chicago, huh?
No doubt. No doubt.
How'd the Yankees lose out on him?
The Yankees never lose out on people like that. It's one of those things where if you're feeling lucky, you might want to go buy some lottery tickets.
Then I think Tyone's from Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes that could be not the best thing.
I agree.
Think about when Dwayne Wade. Well, I know Dwayne Wade was past his prime, but he was a disaster in Chicago.
Agreed. Look at Darryl Strawberry in LA.
Yeah.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I want to ask you one last question and we'll wrap this up because you and I usually keep this to about an hour when we do this together, which I know is long form for you.
Yes.
But actually about half the time most of my shows have been going recently. Jim and I have been hitting that 2-hour mark every time we do Wise Guys. I keep telling him we got to cut it down.
Yeah.
So my last question is this. Going into 2023, is there a player you think is just going to break out and surprise everyone? Or is somebody going to fall off the table and shock everyone?
That's a loaded question, man. There's too many players. And you know, baseball is the most unpredictable of sports when it comes to these types of questions because somebody is always going to come out of, and I don't mean any pun by this, left field. Come out of left field and do something that we never thought that they would do. You know, I think coming back from injury, I'm really pulling for Mike Soroka from the Braves.
Follow up to that. Are they in trouble with Dansby in Chicago?
Nah. Dansby wasn't important.
Do you think Vaughn Grissom can play shortstop and be an offensive force like Dansby was?
He doesn't have to be because of everything else that they have. Now, he needs to be at least 80% of what Dansby was on defense. But in terms of the offensive side of the coin, you know, you're gonna have Ozzie Albies back. Ozzie Albies back for an entire year, hopefully for them. He's gonna come back healthy. Ronald Acuna Jr. is gonna be back healthy for the entire year. Michael Harris II, who won Rookie of the Year, is a beast in the making. And Austin Riley just might win the MVP next year. They'll be fine. And, of course, they got that dude, Matt Olson from the A's. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. I'm really pulling for Mike Soroka only because of the story. Yeah. I'm not a Braves fan. I know you hate the Braves, but I'm still rooting for the story and what that kid had to go through with 2 torn Achilles heels in 2 years. You want that guy to come back and be very, very good.
I agree with you. I would love to see Soroka, and he was great before he got hurt.
Yes, he was. And then you team him with Strider. I mean, and then you, of course, you already still have Fried.
Yeah, Kyle Wright won 20 games.
Yeah. So you've got a lineup or a rotation with Strider and Soroka, who basically would be almost like a rookie again.
Yeah, that National League East is going to be a dogfight between those three teams.
Again.
Yeah. Well, last year wasn't really a dogfight. The Phillies only won 88 games or 89.
Well, we thought it would be on paper the most competitive division in all of baseball. We said
and it was.
Yeah, and it was. So
because it ended in a flat-footed tie.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by that when I say dogfight, because even though the Phillies only won 88 games, they did go to the World Series.
Agreed. And they brought in Trey Turner.
Yes. So now Trey Turner has played for what, 3 of the 5 teams in the National League East?
2
of the 5 teams.
Yeah, the Nationals and the Phillies. The 2 I can't stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So, Willie, it's been an hour. I want to thank you again for coming on. I will probably see you on Friday. Twice in a week. What are we doing, man?
Hey, it's always a pleasure, man.
Oh, I thank you. And Friday night, for those watching or listening, we are going to preview the college football playoff. We're on December the 31st, the next day at 4:30 p.m. in the Fiesta Bowl. That team up north, the number 2 seed, plays against TCU out in the desert. Listen, man, John's a Michigan fan too. This is going to be a Buckeye sandwich on Friday night. I don't want to hear it. I get to say what I need to say.
The team up north that beat the team down south.
Listen, man, again, I'm gonna give you a stat on Friday. It's going to blow your mind.
Okay.
And then, of course, the nightcap in the Georgia Dome, a home game for Georgia, as the number 1 team in the country takes on the number 4 Ohio State Buckeyes in the Peach Bowl in the other CFP semifinal. Willie, thank you again. It has been a wonderful evening talking baseball, which I could do with you for hours. But again, I have a young kid and I need to go to bed.
Me too. And I ain't got no kids. Or I got kids, they ain't that young. They didn't be putting me to bed. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Thank you, sir. Take care, everybody.